Well, as children are returning to the classroom for the start of a new school year, we want to remind you about a Family First publication that we released 2 years ago, but which is still essential reading for parents and caregivers. In fact, it could be one of the most important publications you'll read at the start of this term and year. So if you're a parent and your children are still school age or are about to start attending school, you need to read this publication. The parent guide is entitled The Battle for Your Child's Innocence, How to Protect Your Children from the State's Radical Sexuality and Gender Ideology in Schools. Now, as you'll remember, in the coalition agreement between National and New Zealand First after the election at the end of 2023, it said this: refocus the curriculum on academic achievement and not ideology, including the removal and replacement of the gender, sexuality and relationship-based education guidelines. Well, that all had the media, the academics and the teacher unions in a panic. Fancy expecting schools to focus on reading, writing and arithmetic and not be allowed to indoctrinate our kids with the ideology that they have more than 100 genders and more than 200 sexualities to choose from. Now, just under a year ago, the new Minister of Education, Erica Stanford, was on Q&A with Jack Tame on TVNZ and was asked about this issue.
Given your commitment to a knowledge-based curriculum, should transgender issues be taught in our schools?
Look, what we've committed to under our agreement with the New Zealand First Party is to replace and remove and replace the RSE guidelines. And the reason that we're doing that is because we've had huge feedback, not only from parents, but a lot of principals who've actually sidled up to me and said, Erica, you need to get rid of it. It's problematic.
Yep.
And the reasons for that are because of the age appropriateness of some of the material and the fact that in those guidelines, it says things like, here's a way you can spread this right throughout the curriculum, which means that parents don't have the ability to say, actually, I think this is a responsibility for my family to teach, and I'm going to pull my child out of that lesson.
Because they can take them out of health lessons, right?
They absolutely can.
But you're suggesting that they're taught through all sorts of spaces.
The problem that we have with
in principle, though, back to my question, given your commitment to knowledge-based curriculum, in principle, do you think transgender issues should be taught in our schools?
It's not up to me to decide what goes in the curriculum. I'm not an expert. What we will do is get experts in to decide what is in and at what age is appropriate to teach them, because that's been the problem. It's the age appropriateness of when we introduce these topics.
You're mandating plenty of other things.
Well, the health curriculum is mandated, right? So the health and PE curriculum is mandated. What the problem, which I didn't get to before, is that this RSE guideline, and many people out there won't understand, it's not a curriculum. It's a guideline for boards.
It's a guideline and it's optional. For schools, it's for schools through their boards and optional for parents to pull their kids out.
It's been very confusing. And so there are teachers out there and schools who are implementing it like a curriculum, hence why we have these problems. So the answer is to say, look, get rid of it. Take a look at the health and PE curriculum, which, by the way, is compulsory and I expect to be taught. And health and relationship and sexuality are so important to be in that curriculum. We have to get.
Yeah. Okay. So you look, huge feedback from both parents and principals saying that the RSE guidelines were problematic, that there was concerns about age inappropriateness, and of course it encourages the material. The way it's written at the moment encourages the material to be spread through other subjects, so parents can't remove their child if they object. Of course, there are many other issues with it, including, of course, the biologically flawed gender ideology and the extreme sexuality messaging. Well, then we were told that it was gone. Finito. No more. Everybody celebrated. But has the Ministry of Education paused their marketing of RSE? Has InsideOut and Family Planning is now deceptively named Sexual Wellbeing Aotearoa, possibly because we'd all but destroyed the credibility and the name of family planning as an organisation. But have InsideOut and Family Planning, have they stopped being funded and told not to push RSE in schools until this review has been done? Well, no, it doesn't appear so. According to what parents are telling us, and we're seeing evidence from schools, both the Ministry, Sexual Wellbeing Aotearoa, which is Family Planning, and InsideOut are going full steam ahead and are basically giving the bird to the new government. somebody didn't send the memo. And as I said, we've heard from lots of parents that they're still pushing the RSE curriculum in schools, the existing one. And that's mainly because there isn't a replacement one yet. And we've been contacted by a lot of parents saying that this is still happening. Have you checked your school? At the beginning of last year, we received evidence of what InsideOut indoctrinates teaching staff with. I mean, the fact that staff sit through these sessions without challenging the ideology, the biological distortion and the harm it will do to children is quite astounding. But I have covered this in depth on a McBlog last year. But look, just a couple of quick examples of what teachers are being told to taught by InsideOut. They say don't conflate biology like penis on a boy and uterus on a girl with genders because that conflates sex and gender. Don't say parents or opposite sex because that implies there are only two sexes or genders. Don't say a boy in my class identifies as a girl. No, don't tell the truth. She is a girl. And don't say boys or girls. Oh, hang on. But you just said to say she is a girl. Okay, that's really confusing. Then you've got to use their pronouns. Although on that slide, they've actually missed quite a few of the many possibilities. Teachers are told to shift their thinking. Thinking of someone as a girl who uses they, them pronouns makes things trickier than of them as a non-binary person who uses they, them pronouns and helps you see them as they are. Apparently that's less tricky. What can teachers and staff do? Support Pink Shirt Day. Oh, that's interesting. We were told Pink Shirt Day is all about bullying. But no, it's linked to Out on the Shelves and School Pride Week. And what about pesky parents? Follow the child, they're told. Remember that these are young children. Seek support for yourself and the student. Yes, support for the teacher. Yes, it's traumatizing brainwashing children. From the parenting experts InsideOut, they say unsupportive parents may just be unaware or scared. Nope, they're just caring, loving parents who don't want their children as victims of a hostile agenda and harmful ideology. Now, what fascinates me the most is that the so-called right-leaning government that we have at the moment continues to fund these groups who hate their guts. What do I mean? Well, let's have a look at what InsideOut also says. The 54th Parliament of the settler colony of New Zealand has officially opened. And then down the bottom, the promises in the coalition agreement reflect the violent ongoing presence of colonisation in Aotearoa. Sounds like InsideOut isn't just sex education. There's lots of critical theory as well. They're going to continue to fight for a te tiriti-led Aotearoa. They say they condemn everything they can find, including the rolling back of their darling RSE curriculum. But basically they say they condemn all the other reactionary policies in the coalition agreement, and they say we must fight. And finally, they talk about the intersection of white supremacy, settler colonialism, and racial capitalism. Now, if you want more detail on the curriculum, we've already highlighted in significant detail just how radical the curriculum is, which the government wants to target at your children, even in primary schools. And parents have informed us that some secondary schools in New Zealand last year instructed their students to watch this R20 video, which the state broadcaster TVNZ is promoting on their youth news website called RE. Wish they'd defund that site. But anyway, just have a watch this excerpt, just a warning. There is some offensive stuff, but remember, your school children are being encouraged to watch this.
It can obviously look very different for different types of trans people, dependent on medical status, sites of dysphoria, the potential partners you might be sleeping with, and I could go on and on. Some people find using the penis deeply uncomfortable and prefer to find alternative methods of having sex, depending on their preferences. Their popular method is muffing. Muffing is when you or your partner fingers your inguinal canals, located behind your scrotum, which can be incredibly pleasurable.
The same sentiment goes for trans men, trans masculine people, and other vagina havers who don't identify as women. Many enjoy frontal or anal fingering, rimming, frontal penetrative...
Okay, we'll leave it there, but like I say, some schools were encouraging students to read that. And of course, they've got this resource, which was given to 12-year-olds in a school and which the teacher concerned had pre-approval for the resource from senior teachers, and the teacher had just been on a training course with family planning where they recommend this type of resource. Explicit definitions of various types of sex, most of which you don't want your 12-year-old exposed to. And the radical and extreme gender ideology with all the definitions that they want your child to learn. Plus we've got the puberty change cards these are for 9-year-olds with these fun definitions. How to Make a Baby, this charming book with explicit sex images, which was in some primary school libraries in New Zealand. And guidelines from the Ministry of Education, including helping your child identify as the opposite sex without you as a parent necessarily being informed. And for your 11 or 12-year-old, your child being instructed about how to talk to their sexual partner, 11 and 12. Where to get contraception and STI medical advice. Oh, and how it's all confidential. Don't tell the pesky parents. And at high school, discussing these types of activities. And of course, some schools telling your children that there are 112 genders and over 200 sexualities. Wow. Who knew? Well, have you had enough yet? So what are your rights? How do you protect your children from this radical indoctrination if it's happening in your school? And I say if, you need to check. But in this parent guide, you'll find out the following: the recent developments around the curriculum, what do parents think about the material and what concerns have they already raised? And of course, I've just shared some of those with you. It tells you what are your legal rights of parents and caregivers and what's the relevant law that parents should understand and they can quote when corresponding with their children's schools. You can see what schools are being told and being pressured to do by the Ministry of Education, which we think should concern you. But even outside of sexuality education classes, we also highlight other school resources and events to be aware of, including the so-called Pink Shirt Day. And there's also an outdoor education resource entitled Going with the Flow, with a very strong transgender ideology in it. Most importantly, it gives you your action points as a parent, including key leaders to meet and events to attend, information about Board of Trustees meetings, and how you can get the information you require, and also request agenda items to be discussed. Remember that these boards are parents just like you, and will likely share many of your concerns. Well, hopefully. Now, there's also sample letters to enable you to request having your child protected from any classes that you will disagree with, and a list of questions to ask in order to obtain the relative information that you need from the school. Now, if you have your child in a faith-based school, an integrated school, these schools are also being put under pressure by both the Ministry of Education, but also by activists within the media. Just think Bethlehem College, eh? And we've highlighted some of the terribly biased attacks on that school, and it won't be the last time we see those attacks on Christian schools. So there's some important commentary on faith-based schools and their legal rights and obligations in terms of the religious content, values, and even the rights of these schools as to staff they can employ. And these values will likely match the expectation of parents who enroll their children at these schools, which is probably why you chose the school in the first place. Even when the education may have cost more, it's worth it. So we encourage you and show you how to support the special character of the school, especially when it comes under attack by activists in the community and in the media. The reason we published this parent guide, well, it's time to push back. It's time to say enough. We've seen some progress, but we're not there yet. But it's because your voice and courage is contagious. When you respectfully speak out, it will not only protect your own children, but will have an inevitable and powerful influence on other parents who also want to protect their own children. And so as well as the parent guide, which you can get at parentguide.nz, easy to remember, parentguide.nz, there's also a sheet which summarises the curriculum, some of the horrific parts. I've shown you just a few. And if you go to sexeducation.nz, sexeducation.nz. So parentguide.nz and sexeducation.nz. And please remember, though you may choose to entrust your child to a school, parents are ultimately responsible for overseeing their child's education. Parents who proactively and positively engage with school staff and the leadership and the board are best positioned to influence and make a positive difference for the whole school community. Download this free guide from our website today, familyfirst.nz. The parent guide is parentguide.nz. The curriculum outline, so you can see just how bad it is, sexeducation.nz. Be the voice that your children need and that your local school needs to hear from.